Hi, everybody. Welcome to Stratosphere Lounge. I'm your host, Bill Whittle, and another faultless launch. Technically, did I say technically? Let me do that again. It's good to be here. How is everybody doing? A couple of fun things to talk about. Nothing earth-shattering that I'm aware of yet. Although one news story might be. This is Friday, by the way. Had to postpone today. My good little Bean, my little cat, has had diabetes for a couple years now. It's to go in every now and then and have his blood sugar run, usually twice a year. And the vet's only open late on Thursday nights, so I had to go get him last night. So here we are on Friday, December 3rd. And his blood sugar is just perfect. So that's great. 2 shots a day, and he's golden. Let's see. Just before I started rolling this adventure, just checking the news while we were playing the walk-in music, which is a collection of 60s TV shows. If you haven't seen the show live, you really should check it out. It's really fun. I probably need to do a new one. But it's a kind of a cultural handshake. These are all the things I grew up with. And if I ran them prior to the recorded version that you're watching now on YouTube, if you're not one of the 51 people watching it live, then those would just give me a copyright strike every time, and so there you go. Anyway, in the Jetsons-like future that I'd always thought I was going to be living in, yeah, Petula Clark's not going anywhere. None of the we open every show with "I Know a Place" by Petula Clark. It's the Stratosphere Lounge theme song. I've tried real hard to see if I could get the rights for it just for the internet. It's extraordinarily expensive. So those people who watch the show live continuously, and many Strata Loungers here have been doing it for, gosh, years, 5 years, 6 years, something like that. Get to hear Petula Clark's "I Know a Place" before we get started on this. That's really a big part of the show. In any event, so the future that I thought I was living in, and the future you would see here in the fabulous Stratosphere Lounge, if the cameras were reversed, I've got Sid Mead artwork all over the place. He's a futurist who worked mostly, I think, for General Motors in the early 60s, and he just created this beautifully, highly, extremely colorful world where everything is clean and everything is cool, and it's not like this elitist thing. It's just, in the future, everybody's got prosperity because we have unlimited energy. And one of the ones back there, the one I like the most, is on the wall back there. It's a picture of this gigantic nuclear-powered family traveling. It's like an RV, but it looks like a shuttle from Star Trek. And the kids peering in the window. Dad's negotiating a price. You know, it's like I say, it's an RV, but I'm sure it's nuclear powered because everything that Sid Mead did is. It seems. So I miss the nuclear world, the nuclear powered future, the atomic future. That's the word. Every time, it's funny, it's strange because I play a little word crossword game. You know, you get like 7 letters, and you have to make as many words as possible. I do this to keep the remnants of the neurological system as well lubricated as possible. And every time I see the word atom, ATOM, I think, man, I just love atoms. When it's hard for people who weren't there to believe it, but really, right up until 1979, we all thought we were going to have a nuclear future, and I still don't know where mine is. And when I say nuclear, I mean fission, good old-fashioned, nasty, old-fashioned fission. In 79, I think it was, when the 3 Mile Island vented a tiny little bit of radioactive gas. Nobody got hurt from it. I think one guy had a heart attack reporting it, something like that. And that kind of put nuclear power on the ropes. What really did it was a film called The China Syndrome, which was, the China Syndrome is the idea of a meltdown, where if the reactor malfunctions and the cooling system fails, then the core gets so hot and it's so heavy, being uranium, it will melt down towards China. That's the China Syndrome. And this movie, The China Syndrome, really killed nuclear power, and it happened right around the same time as 3 Mile Island. I want to say it's 79. 3 Mile Island didn't really do anything, but the China Syndrome scared the hell out of people. That's what That's what liberals do. They scare you into compliance with whatever they think about, even though nothing had happened. Anyway, you're probably well aware of something called Chernobyl, which was a catastrophe that could have been 100,000 times worse. They damn near lost all of Western Europe on that one. Uh, Chernobyl happened because a Communist Party. By the way, if you haven't seen the Chernobyl series, I think it's on HBO. It's just simply one of the best. Um, it's one of the best, maybe the best produced thing I've ever seen on TV. I think it's a six-part series. It's astonishingly good. It's absolutely accurate, and it's brilliantly acted, and it's beautifully written. It's just great. But I knew a fair amount about Chernobyl before I saw the HBO series. I didn't know a lot about Chernobyl before the accident, but nevertheless. The short form is a Communist Party official decided he wanted to run a low power reactor test, and all of his engineers said, don't do that. And he said, well, I'm going to do it because I am a representative of the Communist Party and I need to climb the bureaucratic ladder. So I need to be able to say that I achieved this thing. And the engineers, of course, agreed, because if you disagree with a Communist Party official long enough and hard enough, find yourself in Siberia, which is not a bad place to be, by the way, if you've seen my wife. So they ran this low power test. The reactor got into a feedback loop and it exploded. And now we get really to the heart of it. The Soviets didn't build a containment around the reactors. Any U.S. reactor you've seen, and there aren't any new ones, and the old ones are being driven offline by people who apparently think electricity comes from, unicorn sweat. Um, so they they built a reactor, but they didn't build a containment. Those big concrete domes. The reason you have a containment around a nuclear reactor is because if something bad happens, the containment keeps the radioactivity inside. They didn't have that at Chernobyl, and they didn't have it because it was too expensive to build. And the Soviets, of course, this was the Soviets, not the Russians. The Soviets, of course, are never wrong. So they just didn't blow up yesterday, probably won't blow up today. All of this is just the beginning of my energy rant here, because there was an announcement today that I want to talk about. But all of the atomic reactors in the country that are still functioning, all the ones that Germany had an incredible system of nuclear power. They shut it all down for windmills because of political pressure from the Green Party. But all of the reactors in this country were designed in the 50s and 60s. And quite a while ago, we figured out that you didn't have to do all of the heating at once. You didn't have to get a nuclear core so hot that you had all the uranium and all the stuff in one place. So you now have things like the thorium reactor or pebble bed reactors, where where the heating process is spread out over a greater area and greater time. That means it never gets hot enough to melt down. And so where I'm going with all this is, you undoubtedly heard the term failsafe. There's a failsafe against, well, you can't do this because it's a failsafe, this failsafe, that. I didn't know what failsafe meant until, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. I knew what it was, I just didn't know where the term came from. Failsafe means that when something breaks, it doesn't hurt you. It fails safe. And the reactors that we had in this country and around the world, the original first generation nuclear reactors, didn't fail safe. They put fail safe mechanisms there, but that's not in the grand scheme of things. That's not a fail safe. So, for example, at Fukushima, which got hit by a 9.1 earthquake and was rated to survive a 9.0 earthquake, and I've been in a 7.6 or something, and I cannot imagine a 9.0 earthquake. But in any event, in Fukushima, when the reactors would scram, and if they lost power to the cooling pumps, Fukushima had backup diesel generators that would bring cooling water in and keep the reactor cool. But they also suffered, at the same time as the earthquake, a tsunami. The tsunami took out the backup generators, and so the engineering fail-safe failed, and you had another incident. So for me, real failsafe means that if anything goes wrong, the reactor just stops and nothing happens. There's no radioactive release. In any event, all of these fission reactors now that are capable of designing, especially thorium, which is easy to obtain and just really a wonderful fuel source. All of this stuff's been available. You can't even talk about it. See, I have a lot of problems with green energy, and my problems with green energy is pretty simple. Green energy can't do the job. If it could do the job, I'd be in favor of green energy, but it doesn't, so it doesn't. I think probably the most wildly optimistic estimate is that green energy might provide 7% of our total energy needs. And since it's dark during the nighttime, and since the wind doesn't blow sometimes, Wizard said that Fukushima had a drowning failsafe which the politicians intentionally disabled. Didn't know that. Anyway, all of this stuff is achievable with fission. Here's what a real failsafe reactor looks like. If anything happens, if there's an earthquake, the earth splits, falls in half, meteor hits the dome, whatever, catastrophic, then everything's fine. The reactor goes offline, and there's no radiation leakage. These things are attainable. They've had a portable nuclear generator that generates around 25 megawatts. It's about the size of a little small, maybe the size of a school bus, or something, but considerably smaller than that. Completely self-contained. You just put it on a flatbed truck, and here's your 25 megawatts of power. I would have one of those buried underneath my house, probably underneath the swimming pool. I don't have a swimming pool, but if I did, that's where I'd put it, because water's a great protector against radiation. Anyway, all of this to say, in a world where there's unlimited energy, there's unlimited prosperity. You could think this through, and we did back in the 60s, guys like Sid Mead and so on. I'm just going to take a brief detour on the same, all on the same opening rant, but nevertheless, for those of you who weren't around during the space age, NASA had an expression in the early 60s, and that expression, and when I say early to mid 60s, that expression was Saturn by 70. And that wasn't go to Saturn by 2170, that was we should be at Saturn by 1970. Saturn by 70 was what these guys were talking about. They developed something called the NERVA program, and they built, I want to say it was 23 nuclear rockets. Simplest thing in the world. Just take a bunch of uranium rods, and you run some liquid hydrogen right over them. They get real hot. Out they go. Out the back, it's twice as efficient as the most efficient chemical engines, and you don't need to carry nearly so much mass with you because you don't need an oxidizer. So NERVA did 23 engines, and they all worked perfectly, no problems, no failures. They just decided to shut it down because political pressure, and on and on, blah, 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 blah. But just think about this. When I was growing up, the idea of unlimited energy meant that we have, as you may have heard, we have the occasional droughts here in California. That was just off the table for me for the first half of my life. Its idea was inconceivable. Why would you have a drought in California? Well, because it stopped raining. Okay, no problem. I get that. But California does border on the largest body of water in the world. In fact, the largest, I almost said almost largest body of water in the known universe, but the inside of Ceres may actually contain more water than Earth does. In any event, you got a drought. Great. You go to your nuclear-powered desalination plants, and then you run them to your nuclear-powered pumping stations, and you simply pump as much water as you want. You have unlimited fresh water in California at all times. Grow cotton in the Nevada desert if you want to, if you have unlimited power. And that's what I thought was going to happen. When the two most influential events in my childhood, one was watching the Thunderbirds when I was 5, and another one was right around that same time. I was born in '59, so 64 World's Fair in New York. They had the Futurama display, which was General Motors, I think. And I've talked about this before. I remember these enormous, tableaus of like models. Here's the lunar base, and you're riding through this. And I seem to remember going to the horizon. I saw a video of it, and I realized it's about the size of a card table, but nevertheless, In any event, the world of unlimited clean power is a very different world than the world we live in, because we live in a world that is politically generated by scarcity. We've got to shut down our natural gas plants. We've got to shut down our coal and oil plants. Why? Because it's killing the planet. I don't think it is. But I would cheerfully shut down coal and gas plants and oil-based plants if we had reliable, endless energy, which would be nuclear. Nuclear's off the table. Because the Soviets put a fire in a house and they didn't put it in a fireplace. They just lit the fire in the middle of the living room. That's what a nuclear reactor without a containment is. It's like coming home and then starting your fire for the evening because it's cold and you don't have bricks around the fire and you don't have a brick fire escape mechanism with the chimney. You just lit it in the middle of the living room and hoped everything turned out. So anyway, today I heard this would be, and it still may yet be, but should be, get a little shadow off my face here, should be a historical day, because today I heard, for the first time in history, we have at Lawrence Livermore University, Lawrence Livermore Laboratory, for the first time today, they did an experiment with fusion. Fusion's different than fission. Fission is taking a big heavy element like uranium and having the particles hit each other with neutrons. They split off and release energy. Fusion is where you have to smash hydrogen atoms together. Fusion is what powers the sun. And fusion is awesome because fusion, first of all you need is hydrogen. There's a specific kind of a helium will do it. Helium-3 is naturally made on the moon and all this other stuff. But today, in any event, forget about I'm not going to make this whole show about this. But today in the news, I heard that at Lawrence Livermore Laboratories today, for the first time in history, they did an experiment on fusion and they got more energy out of the system than they did to put into it. And that's been the holy grail for fusion. In order to make this happen, let me just tell you what, I'm not convinced that this is the way to go, by the way. There might be better ways to do fusion, but in any event, the classic fusion experiment works like this. Nope, that's not it. Hang on a second. Yeah, let's just do this. Because these numbers are mind-boggling. So at Livermore today, 3rd of December 2021, this date is a date that may go down in history for those of you who care about these kind of things. They were able to do a test run and they got more energy out than they put in. So what do you mean by put in energy? You don't have to put in energy when you fire up an oil plant. You don't have to, the energy's in the fuel, right? The energy's, somebody can help me with this. If oil is both a fuel, there's a difference between a fuel and an energy source. And I'm pretty sure fuel is the energy source and the fuel. In any event, in order to make this fusion reactor work, it takes a ton of energy just to get it going. And one of the things that takes a ton of energy, just read this because this is actually, I've known all this theoretically, but some of this is really pretty cool. So at the Livermore lab, what they did was they took a little tiny capsule of deuterium and tritium, it's heavier isotopes of hydrogen. It's placed in a hollow gold chamber about the size of a pencil eraser, I'm kind of paraphrasing now, called a hole run, I guess. Then 192 high-powered laser beams. 192 high-powered laser beams require a great deal of electricity to operate. So you're starting out this power plant that's supposed to be generating electricity. You're starting out with a huge deficit because this plant that's supposed to be generating energy is actually sucking in enormous amounts of energy from other coal-based plants or oil-based plants in order to power the lasers. But 192 high-powered laser beams are then blasted into an area the size of a pencil eraser. And these are the numbers that I didn't know before. Resulting in temperatures of, I want to just get this right, because everybody compares things to the sun. I've got these numbers in my head, I just want to make sure I'm right. This is where the internet is amazing, and wish I just left it like this. So the temperature of the surface of the sun is about 5,000 to 6,000 degrees centigrade. That's not a crazy high number. The reentry vehicles get nearly that hot. The core, on the other hand, where the reaction is a good deal hotter, 15 million degrees Celsius. Quite a big difference between 5,000 and 15 million. Okay, so now we get to the fun part. So in order to make this experiment work at Livermore Laboratories, they had to concentrate these lasers, 192 lasers, into an area the size of a pencil eraser, and they got to 100 million degrees Celsius. 100 million degrees. That's what? 3 times the temperature of the solar core? And this number impressed me more than that, too. Not only do they have to have it under a very high temperature, something under that kind of high temperature will just immediately explode, obviously, and that's not what you want. You want this thing to continue burning hot, 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 hot. That'll heat steam. You can drive turbines with it. So in order to contain this thing, you have to do something different than the sun, because the way the sun contains this incredibly powerful explosive reactor is because the gravity of the sun is so enormous that the weight of the star is pressing down on the core hard enough so that fusion can happen in the middle. And the star is in a state of equilibrium. There's in the center of the star, the hydrogen is being fused into helium, and this is generating an enormously explosive effect, but the gravity of the sun is so huge, it's creating an extremely great compressive effect, and you get, 8-9 billion years of high quality energy from that thing. So in a laboratory, you've got this problem now. You've got the same temperature. You get 3 times the temperature of the sun, but you got no gravitational mass whatsoever in a pencil eraser. So they have to use magnetic fields, which is much more, thousands, I don't know how many times more powerful magnetism is than gravity. Somebody in our brilliant comment section will tell me, but it's thousands, if not millions of times more powerful. So to make this fusion reactor work, they have to use magnetic fields to contain the reaction, and here we go. The pressure inside of this reactor core at Lawrence Livermore. 1 atmosphere is what you're experiencing right now. Every 30 feet of depth you go down into the ocean, you get, you pick up another atmosphere. Subs will generally go down as deep as maybe 30 or 40 atmospheres. That's a measure of pressure. I've heard that inside a pistol or a rifle that's being fired, the pressure behind the bullet when that charge goes off is on the order of 30,000 atmospheres. That's a lot of pressure on one side of the bullet compared to 1 atmosphere on the other, so that bullet leaves in a hurry. And the pressures that they achieved at Lawrence Livermore are 100 billion atmospheres. 100 billion atmospheres of pressure is, to me, much more impressive than 100 million degrees Celsius. I simply astonish. Of course, you put a lot of energy into a tiny little place. So anyway, you get the idea. You gotta have these enormous lasers firing this thing to get it hot enough, and then you have to have these enormous electromagnets to create a magnetic field strong enough to contain it, and that turns out to be about 2 terajoules, something like that. And finally, we got one that they sucked up all this energy to run the lasers and the magnets, but this thing exploded and more energy came out of it than went into it. It's the first time in human history, December 3rd, 2021, at good old United States of America, loosely defined because it's in California. More energy came out of that than went into it. So that's the holy grail for fusion. They've been working on this for 30 years, hard. It always seemed like fusion was 10 years away for the last 30 years. Kind of like the end of COVID. But here's the final thing. This is what blew my mind. Here's how fast things are happening at Livermore. In 2018, the reaction that they got at Livermore today is 25 times greater than the reaction they got in 2018. Since 2018, they've multiplied the yield by 25 times. And it is 8 times greater. Energy they got out of this reaction today, 8 times greater than an experiment conducted 2 months ago, 2 to 3 months ago. So in 3 months, we've multiplied the yield by a factor of 8. That's actual, honest-to-God progress. Now, so I don't know what the actual yield was, but in round numbers, let's just say for the sake of it, you put 1.8 gigajoules into it, and you get 1.9 out. That's hardly worth the expense of the and all of it. But the point is, 25 times the yield of a couple years ago, 8 times the yield of a couple months ago. This is moving fast. And here's the thing about this: it's such a game changer. I've been waiting for unlimited clean energy from nuclear for 62 years now. And opponents of nuclear fission and nuclear energy has been available to us until today, have pointed out the risks of fallout and all the rest of it. And that's a serious risk. It can be solved, but not with the political system we have today. However, if this works, and it did work, it worked today, then you're going to have a hard time, the left is going to have a hard time getting around fusion. I can understand how they can raise, and to be perfectly honest with you, I can understand there's legitimate reason to fear fission power because of the spent nuclear fuel and the risk of serious contamination, all that. But the byproduct that comes, you put hydrogen into the reactor, which you can get from water, and then if you have to split the hydrogen from the oxygen atoms using electricity, which your plant's going to generate a lot of, the byproduct is oxygen. You get oxygen. This is a long, well, I almost said it's a long way from a working reactor, but it's been a long way from a working reactor until today. Today was the Holy Grail. Today was the Holy Grail of fusion. The day when more energy came out of the reaction than went into it. Today was the first day that the experiments have actually been in the black, so to speak. Yes, Wizard's saying you fuse 2 hydrogens, you get helium, but there's not an enormous mass in there to begin with. You get a tremendous, unbelievable amount of energy out of it. So, and besides, so okay, so you get some helium, you get to have free kids balloons as well. Now we need to. Steve Eisenstein says now we need to pick up the pace building the second fleet. Yeah, I was really pretty happy with that. Moving back to America. There is no radiation. It's not radioactive. There are no heavy elements. There's no neutron emission that's being absorbed by metal and other things that can be contaminated. There's no fallout. And if the thing gets hit by a lightning bolt or a meteor, it just simply shuts down. This reaction is it's not like fission. You put enough fission in one place, this thing is going to be hot forever. For 20,000 years, it's going to be hot forever. The second you turn the switch off, the power goes off. It just stops. It's not working right now, and it won't. And the second it stops, and it'll stop working too. There's no radiation. Yeah, that's right. There's no radiation. Plenty of heat. It's an incredibly efficient reaction in terms of its energy production, but it takes a tough piece of engineering to get it done. How is the left going to deal with this? And that's kind of comes to the political point here, because no matter what they tell you, the hardcore left, the watermelons, the reds, that are wearing a green skin, have said that the worst thing that could happen to humanity would be for humanity to have a source of unlimited clean power. It's because they hate people, they hate humanity, they hate all of it. If we can get fusion going, well, I keep saying if we can get fusion going, we got fusion going. It happened today. Then they're going to have a hard time trying to convince people that they have to do things like, endure rolling blackouts. This is kind of a greatest generation thing. When energy is expensive, and it has been, and it continues to get more expensive. But when I was a kid growing up, and undoubtedly many of you had greatest generation parents, if you left a light on in the room, go in there, turn that light off. It's costing us money. Close that door. I'm not trying to air condition the entire state of Florida. Or close that door. I'm not trying to heat the entire state of Minnesota. You have unlimited free energy. You just say, yeah, why not? Just air condition Florida. Just air condition the whole state. So this is one of the things that makes me think that the things are not only turning around on a short scale, but turning around on a large scale. They won't be able to defeat this. Well, as long as we have the Republican Party defending things like fusion, then I'm sure they will. But this isn't windmills, and this isn't solar farms. This is the real deal. I did a lot of research on this. Almost turned it into almost at a firewall. But to be honest with you, moving back to America is try to make them as much like firewalls, and they're far, 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 far easier to produce. So it was a big day. Yeah, Wizard says it's solar with less steps. It is solar with less steps and 200 million times the yield. It's not a 20 megawatt solar farm. It's not a 15 megawatt wind farm. It's a 3 billion watt reactor, completely clean. So this is just an example of what engineering can do, and how the world has changed since I was a boy. We always knew that we could pull this off. We just lost the will. We could have been Saturn by 70 would have been a bit optimistic, but Mars by 70 was doable. And then the left happened. Eric Blake says, is cold fusion what happened? No, it's not cold fusion. Cold fusion is a big scandal. Guys basically came out and said, hey, we found a way to do fusion. It doesn't even get hot, just generates energy out of a cold beaker. They found some kind of reaction going on. They thought it was fusion. They didn't test it hard enough, but cold fusion is not real. Wizard says, now you could mount solar panels around the reactor miles away and make leftists use that. That's actually how we should do it. We should actually get these fusion reactors, bury them in the ground, run the power cables out, and then put a series of painted cardboard or painted plywood solar panels. And they're completely useless. They're just wood painted with little cross hatches on them. And then the fusion plant's buried below that, but the wires come up, and then they come out of this thing that we tell people is a solar farm, and then they're good to go. But this is a game changer, and I almost said I'm not going to live to see it. But when you get a yield that's 25 times what it was in 2018, and 8 times what it was in September. Now you're cooking with gas, if you'll pardon the expression. So that was really good news. Let's see, a couple of other stories from the amazing field of science. Wizard says, I lived to see the Jetsons car. Close. I mean, yeah, all right. I wanted to be a fighter pilot. Got to fly it along easy. Close enough. Thanks, Bert. So there's that. And then, in unrelated science news, I found out yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday. Got some good news and bad news on this one. We've detected an incoming. I hate to call it asteroid because it's not really an asteroid, but planetoid. Technical terms, a meteoroid. And so, good news and bad news. The bad news is it is going to hit the Earth, and the good news is we know exactly when and we know exactly where, for once. And even better news is that it's really quite a small object. So this next one is either good news or bad news, depending on your perspective. This small meteoroid is going to impact the Earth on January 13th at 1 o'clock Pacific time. And we know where it's going to land. And it's going to land right exactly here. It's going to land right here. This is where it's going to hit. It's going to hit right there. Right there. So, for most of you, good news. For me, it's not terrible news. So, when this micrometeoroid strikes the Earth and strikes the Earth right here, it's going to produce a crater here about the size of, I almost said a dime. It's actually going to be about the size of a nickel, maybe. And that impact crater will last for at least 3 or 4 months. So, what am I trying to say with all of this prestidigitation? That's the second time I've mispronounced prestidigitation in 2 days. So I did a little biopsy here and had this little irregular patch. It's not very obvious. It's just a little kind of a discoloring thing. But and I've been to a dermatologist. I go every 6 months, and he took a look at it. And finally, I had to kind of say, can we find out what this is? Because it just won't go away. It's just this little discolored patch, and sometimes it's more prominent than others, but it's been here for a while. I don't even know when it came in, but there it is. So after finally having looked this thing over 5 times, I said, can we find out what it is? And it turns out it's a basal cell form of skin cancer. Now, basal cell is the bottom tier, your kind of entry level skin cancer. It's the least dangerous. Above that, if my understanding is correct, is squamous cell, and then above that you get into melanomas. Melanomas are a real danger. Squamous cells less so, and basal cell is even less so. Maurice Stark points out that term basal comes from base. It's like a fundamental. It's your entry level skin cancer, and it's all I could afford. So, in any event, what I'm going to have to do on the 13th of January is go in and they're going to do something called a Mohs procedure, MOHS. Whatever you do, do not Google Mohs procedure images. Do not do that. Because if you do, and I know you're all doing it now, I know what kind of people you are. You're going to find people with holes in their nose that reveal their sinuses, holes in the side of their head that reveal their it's freaking horrible. So what they're going to do with a Mohs, MOHS Mohs procedure is they go in there, same guy's going to go in there, he's going to numb up my lip, at least I hope he's going to. He did last time. And then what they do with the Mohs is they get the basal cell cancer out, and then they kind of go around the edge, and they take little tiny pieces, and then while you're still sitting there enjoying the view, they get those under a microscope, and when they no longer see any the basal cells, when it's nothing but clean cells all around, then they leave you alone. So starting on the first day after, I think 13th, I want to say it's a Monday, let me check. So I've had this, the 13th is a Monday. Oh, that's December. It's a Thursday. Hey, it was Stratosphere Lounge night. I had this dark spot from the biopsy, which is completely scabbed over and gone now, pretty much. It's going to be like that, but it's going to be 20 times the area. So I'm going to have either a Band-Aid on my lip for a couple of weeks to prevent, people from losing their lunch watching the various content here at BillWhittle.com. And then what will happen is it's an actual hole, and it doesn't go all the way through the lip, but it is a crater, and so makeup's not going to really cover that. Eventually, it'll heal up enough so I can take the Band-Aid off. Then I could probably put some makeup on it. Then it'll sort of scab over, and then it'll be gone. And that's the end of that, and I don't have to worry about it. Skin graft from my butt. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a skin graft from the butt, and that's done live. It's not like they take the skin off of the butt. It's like they peel a flap of skin from your butt and then stitch it to your nose here, and it forces you into kind of an uncomfortable position for a while. Marisha said, metahuman built to the rescue. Funny you mentioned that, because I've given that real serious thought. I can do that in real time. But all of this just to say that this is something that does not concern me in any way other than the cosmetic issue that'll be there for probably a month and a half, 2 months. So if it turns out that you also have one of these things, this is relatively bad news compared to, no, it's completely, it's nothing. It's just a patch of eczema. So I am genuinely not worried about it. I'm not worried about the outcome. I'm not worried about the procedure. For those of you who've been around for a while, I had 2 serious size patches on my back. They got to be serious size. I couldn't see them. And one of those had an incision about that long, and I took pictures of that and posted it. And now that one in 2015, 14, somewhere around there. That one, they took a hunk out of me. I'm always curious in these kind of things. I always like to hear what's going on, and on the one on my left shoulder, I had one on my right shoulder, one on my left shoulder. One on my right was done with nitrogen, just a lot of nitrogen. The one on the left, they had to take a hunk of bill away, and I don't know. I'll just recount this story because I'm in a blabbering mood, which is good for you, because one thing I've noticed about these Stratosphere Lounge episodes as we approach, I think, episode 305, is that I carry most of the conversation. So, when I had this thing done with my back, I'm sitting on the, but people are pointing out, sunny place. So I've lived in, when I was 3, I moved to Bermuda, then I lived in Florida, then I lived in California. That's a lot of sunshine. I'd love to use that as an excuse, but I've never been out in the sunshine, at least not since I was a kid. So anyway, when they did this thing on my back, I'm lying face down. Well, first of all, I'm sitting on the butcher's table, rather the professional paper film that doctors have. And he says, all right, so the injection of the anesthetic is what hurts the most, because the anesthetic stings for a few minutes before it goes in. And when they did the biopsy, they gave me an injection. It stung a little bit. They give you this little kind of that vibrates on your chin, like this. What's this? It makes your brain pays attention to the vibration and less pain and less attention to this. They did that when I did a root canal too. It actually works. He said, this is going to hurt a lot. And I said, okay. And so he gives me this injection because he'd inject a lot of it. It's a big area. And it stung a bit. And I said, is it going to, when's the hurt part going to really kick in? And he said, oh, no, we're done. We're all done. I said, this is it? He said, I've had grown men weeping and crying from what we just did to you. Oh, whatever. Oh, and I've been asked to promote the Discord, so I will in a minute. It's starting to get popular. Anyway, so I weathered that, and I said, did it bother you? It stung a bit, it's not the end of the world, okay? So then I'm lying face down, and I feel absolutely nothing. There's the thing about and I've always wondered about this, when you have a local anesthetic, you don't feel any pain, but you do feel pressure. So I don't feel much of anything, and I'm lying face down. All of a sudden, I feel a little bit wet back on my, little bit of wetness on my shoulder. And I said to the doctor, I said, are you about to tell me that one of you accidentally spilled a glass of absolutely pure sparkling mountain water on my back there? Because I feel a little wet back there. I said, yeah, that's exactly what it was. We just spilled some beautiful, clean, clear water on your back by accident. Here you go. So they got the thing out, and here's the fun part. You get to lie there while they run this thing over to the lab. You're still numbed up, and I didn't feel a thing. And they have to check around the perimeter so that with the microscope, so they find out that this hunk of bill that they took out of my back is it's bill all the way around the edges, and it's unwanted hitchhiking, layabouts in the middle. So yeah, it's good. So that's about a 15-20 minute wait, which is pretty impressive. And while I'm sitting there, before they sent it off, I said, I'm really curious about all kinds of things. I'm always curious about medical procedures, all of it. I said, "Can you show me this thing?" He said, "We generally don't do that." I said, "Yeah, kind of curious." He said, "You're not going to get sick, are you?" He said, "I don't think so. Let's give it a try." So I'm lying face down, and he got this forceps, and he brings this hunk of me out about that big, something like that. You can see my skin has been marked up with markers where the guy's done they just put a little marker there to do the surgery. And underneath that comes from, is the fat layer, which is bright yellow, Simpson's yellow, shockingly yellow. And underneath that's a bit of red. And it looked exactly like a piece of sushi. And I don't like sushi. So I sent it back. And then he put some heavy duty stitches in there. When I say heavy duty, he had a pretty big size hole to close, and since it's on the back of your shoulder, there's a fair amount of tension there. So I think he used, kind of fishing line you used to bring big sharks in with, and he just kept, I could feel him. I've never been laced into a corset, despite what you may think, but it had that kind of feel where it's like, oh, okay, he's leaning into this thing. And then I took a picture of it and I showed it to everybody, and there you go. He took my pound of flesh. Well, he took a few ounces anyway, and honestly, this is the absolute truth. Same thing for the biopsy. Once the anesthetic wore off the local, I didn't take so much as a Tylenol. I didn't feel anything. So there you go. So I'm gonna have a crater here on my lip, and I think I might do a Moving Back to America show about this, and I might even do a contest. I might do a name that crater contest. I think what I'll do is have a online poll, and unlike other online polls, which can go very wrong, just ask Bodie McBoatface, or the poll that they did for online poll for the new flavor of Mountain Dew, apple flavored Mountain Dew, and they said we're gonna let the public name it, and the number one answer on the poll for the new flavor of Mountain Dew was Hitler did nothing wrong. So in the name of the crater competition for the impact crater that's going to be here on my lip for a while, I think we're going to limit it to lunar craters, authentic lunar craters. I'm personally leaning towards Archimedes because I think that'd be a cool thing to have on your lip. But I think we'll let the public decide. That has to be an actual authentic lunar crater, and we'll set that up. So all of this to say that, making light of something, deep impact. I like that, Eric. That's good. That's a good time. Oh, what would be the ultimate would be to name it after the crater that landed in the Mediterranean. I'm sorry, in the Gulf of Mexico, just off of the Yucatan Peninsula, and wiped out the dinosaurs 66 million years ago. It's unpronounceable. It's Chicotepec, something or other. But I don't want something I can't pronounce. So lunar crater. Tycho's nice. Not a big crater, but stands out. And here on your lip, it's gonna stand out. Chicxulub. Chicken musket. Anyway, so that's that. One more strange little medical procedure. I'm sure I'll get So Chishulub. Clavius is the answer. I was 2001 background. Now, this one I might get a little bit of a pushback on because it's not widely known, but it came to me highly recommended, so I just did this earlier today. I've been feeling really low energy, really low energy, and for a couple years now, I just feel like my hormones are going off the cliff and all that. Chishulub. Trishilaloo, whatever. Why don't you just name it Benson or something? We decided to try something out today. Natasha had been in Russia, and there's a lot of medical procedures and quasi-medical procedures that are in much more common usage than they are in the United States because the FDA, which I normally had a lot of respect for, lost a fair amount of respect for the FDA. All confidence in the CDC is gone. Chishulub. Okay, that's better. Anyway, So we decided to try this. It's called intravenous therapy, and what they do is they give you massive doses of vitamins and stuff intravenously. While I'm watching the little video here, I forget the. If you do nothing but chew vitamin C's all day, you get something like 200 millimolars per milliliter. You get 200. Intravenously, you can get up to 15,000. And so we decided to go do this. It's like a little menu. I'll take some of the anti-aging stuff and a little bit of this, a little bit of weight loss stuff, and all that. They put together these kind of cocktails in an intravenous bag, and off they go. Now, what I wanted to try for the fun of it was, and what I ended up doing just a couple hours ago, is in addition to all these mega vitamins and all the rest of this stuff that goes right into your arm, I also decided to try some ozone therapy. So here's how that works. They take 60 cc's of blood out of Bill. So far I'm down. It's like the reactor thing. I'm at a net loss so far. Take 60 cc's out, which is, a bag about, a bag about that big, and that thing. Comes out in a big old syringe. They inject it into this IV bag, and then they take the same hypodermic, and they fill it full of gas, which is ozone. Ozone is O3. Breathing oxygen is O2. I've got all the zinc in the universe. They put in more zinc than I got more zinc in me than a car battery. So what they have is they got a bag of Bill blood here, 60 cc's of me, and if you've ever had a blood test and you're one of those people who looks at it, you'll notice that when blood comes out of your veins, they never go to an artery. When it comes out of your veins, human blood is so dark, it's damn near black. It's deep maroon, very dark in color because it's got no oxygen in it. The lungs have already put oxygen in, the tissues have taken it out. It's on its way back to the lungs. That's when they pull it out of your body. So if you've ever seen human blood that has not been exposed to the air, it's not blood red at all. It's dark maroon, really dark maroon. So now we've got a big dark maroon bag of Bill blood hanging on this thing. And this guy takes the same volume of blood that he took out. He takes the same volume of ozone, which is O3. You can't breathe ozone. Ozone's poisonous for you. But he then takes this ozone and injects it into the bag. So he's not having to go through my lungs, don't have to deal with the poison and all the rest of it. It's going straight to the blood. And as soon as that ozone hits the blood goes, wow. It turns into red blood, which they then inject back into you, and then kind of feel better. They say it take a couple days to really feel it, but I figured I don't see anything can really go wrong with this. I mean, my blood is priceless, needless to say, but it was handled with the appropriate amount of respect and care, and Natasha was right next to me. She had it done too. So they say a couple days for it to really feel. I felt better coming out of the place. And in addition to that, I had a cocktail of all the vitamins and minerals and zinc. And this is actually the key point, I think, for me. They also gave me half a liter of saline solution. Because when I went to offer up my vein to this guy, great people, really, it wasn't quite fun, but it sure wasn't unpleasant. It was actually really interesting. So, as this guy is looking for a vein, he just looks at my arm and says, "You are exceedingly dehydrated." And I have been chronically and acutely dehydrated for a long time. I don't know how long, but a long time. A lot of these dry patches on my skin, all due to dehydration. I've been badly dehydrated. In fact, the only time I ever drink is when I'm recording. I don't even drink a lot of water during this, but when I'm recording, like a firewall or something, or when I'm on camera, I drink like a fish. Just water, obviously. Somebody put pineapple juice in my pineapple juice. So, really dehydrated. I've really dry skin. I've got a lot of symptoms of dry skin, and I know I was supposed to drink more water, but I just didn't. So 60 cc's comes out of me, and when you combine the 60, because the 60 cc's went out of me, you got shot with ozone, hooray! And then on the way in, they run it through a thin little tube with ultraviolet light, and the ultraviolet light, according to the advertising promotion, uh, kills a bunch of nasties in there too, bacteria and all the rest of it. We're not used to seeing ultraviolet. So it comes back in. Lady Hawk drinks 2 liters of water a day. Wow, that's amazing. Um, so, uh, 60 cc's out, oxygenated, run through the ultraviolet, back into the arm. I'm now back at net zero. Plus, uh, is there 1,000 cc's in a liter? Is that? I don't know. It sounds like it makes sense. In any event, blood goes out, oxygenated, clean, back in again. Sweet. Plus, I get a half a liter of liquid with the chemicals. I mean the vitamins and the minerals and all that stuff. Plus, at no additional charge, I might point out, at no additional charge, I also get 500. I also get half a liter of saline solution. So basically, I went into this clinic 2 quarts low, not even showing up on the dipstick. It's just not even. There's no oil there, and they completely just topped me off. So I may go back and do like regular hydration IVs as I start to continue to drink more water. But so I'm a liter of fluid more in my bloodstream than there was when I got there at 10:30 this morning. Um, and I'll answer that, Bart. Don't let me forget. Um, and uh, and I certainly felt better coming out, and my voice felt better. It, that may have something to do with it too. Just being dehydrated with a scratchy voice thing. Um, so uh, we will see. But I think at the very least, I might do uh, the hydration thing, and because I'm definitely feeling better. So anyway, that was kind of cool. It was really fun watching watching that ozone hit the blood. It's like holy cow. Uh, in the comments section here, where Marusha Dark, who can always be counted on to supply not only stuff that's extremely interesting but also extremely dark. Name's probably just a coincidence. Pointed out that the Russians had done experiments with the decapitated dogs and they kept the head alive for hours. They did. It's true. Horrible, but true. Uh, I think the scientist in charge of that was named Antoniovich Faustovich, I think his name was. Uh, anyway, uh, so that would be lovely because when I was describing how my energy felt low and I felt like I'd explained to doctor, well, I just feel, doc, I feel like I got like there's no blood in my veins. I feel like I'm running on compressed air, like I'm a pneumatic creature rather than a hydraulic one. I don't know if that makes any sense to you. And he said, no, it really doesn't. But anyway, hey, hello, first time chat, evening, Bill and chat. Hi, first time chatter. So that was fun. So they Bart asked, where can you get this done? You can get it done in Los Angeles. It's very any relation to Fauci? No, I'm sure there's no relation at all. Um, so I would just do a Google search. What I searched for was I think I searched for IV therapy. Uh, the there's a cocktail that's been in place, a combination of these things called I think Myers, which is here's this much potassium, this much zinc, this much this, and then this is Myers Plus because it's extra something. But I would just search for that. It's actually really common, or at least certainly more common in Russia. That's where Natasha heard about it, and we looked it up here. So in Los Angeles, we get it. Uh, and it was just interesting and cool. And I didn't see a downside to it. I'm not. There was no medicine. I wasn't being injected with anything that's messing with my RNA or anything insane like that, which would you know be something you want to be careful about. But we'll see how it works out. And at the very least, I think just finding I was that badly dehydrated, I think just getting hydration IV once a week for a little while until I get this done. How hard is this procedure on the kidneys? I don't know. I had to, when they finished this thing off. By the way, it took a couple hours and probably doesn't take that long for most people. But they're putting fluid into you it's not refrigerated fluid, at least I don't think it was, but um, but it's at least room temperature. And room temperature is what in an air conditioned building, 72 degrees, and inside the Bill reactor, it's a cozy 98.6. So your body uh, has to heat that extra liter of fluid up, and that maybe got me kind of cold there for my hands got real cold. And towards the very end of it, as I was taking in that extra half liter of delicious saline solution, I started to get quite cold because your body core is just trying to warm up a significant hunk of liquid. And it's hard to heat water. When you say you have, I have this brownie and it's 700 calories, it's actually 700,000 calories, it's 700 kilocalories. So, anyway, uh, I have high hopes for it, and at the very least, it was an interesting and fun experience, and it did help with the dehydration thing. Here's another drink of water. Cheers, by the way. Saline was cold. I got to think that the vitamins and all the rest of that stuff was also um, relative. It must have been kept relatively cool. Final thing they did, by the way, um, hydrate with Bill, says Steve Einstein. It's a new hashtag. Cost ballpark. I got a lot of extra stuff done. It was about $400 for me, which is not cheap at all. But I was at the point where I was like, I'm really, really feeling bad, low energy. I got to get something going here. So we'll see. Um, oh, Mr. Tomes says, or Mrs. Tomes, or CP Tomes, Mr. Tomes said I got packed red blood cells fresh out of the fridge when I was laid up with a broken leg. That was painful. Yeah. So finally, the final thing was I'm like just at the very end of the last bag going. I'm actually starting to shiver a little bit, and then he did this with Natasha first because she didn't need the extra half a liter top up that I needed. Then they give you an injection of magnesium. I'm assuming it's somewhat watered down and not pure liquid magnesium, uh, and and she that aches a little bit. It's not really painful; it's just a bit of an ache when it goes into the IV. And I just massage a little bit, and then she felt like this really big warmth that went all the way through her body, and I just suddenly felt like warm in the back of my throat for a few moments, and then that was it. Burned out. It didn't get the whole like body flush thing. A lot of people say that it just all of a sudden gives you like hot flash. So anyway. 17, an hour and 15 minutes of science. Um, I'll let you know. If I jog to work on Tuesday, uh, then that'll be absolutely great. Somebody commented earlier that I need to get back into working out. It's like, yeah, no kidding. My friend Ron Smith, Rocket Smith, died a couple years ago. He's 10 years younger than me. He had been fighting cancer most of his life. He was the most original and funny guy I've ever seen. And I do have, I keep mentioning this, I've got the show that we did in Florida in the early 90s called Grazing, that I went to Florida, found a bunch of really talented actors and comedians and writers, and we did 4 episodes of a comedy show, a sketch comedy show called Grazing. And I've got it, and I need to get it transferred off of the CD and onto and I'll just play it. What's the control group on the ozone study? I'm the control group. Um, just back to the ozone just for a quick second. I'm watching a video, not from this guy's clinic, from somebody else, and this doctor's saying that this is not new, that prior to antibiotics, ozone treatment was the only thing they had that would help with infection. They take the blood out of you, shoot the blood full of ozone, run the blood through ultraviolet, and actually kill a lot of the bad stuff in there. So now I did what's called one bag, 60 cc's, one bag. Some people do 10 bags, and when you get to that kind of volume, now it has to be in a loop, because if they took 600 cc's out of you, you would know it. So anyway, yeah, this isn't chemicals really. I mean, obviously, all of biology is chemistry, but this is not a. It's not a. This is not a. These are vitamins. It's not like a new medication. This is interesting. Helio says you should have seen when the UFC allowed IV rehydration after weight cuts. It was insane. A lot of people have said in this video that I was watching, and a doctor said it too, that a lot of times people will go in, they'll have the ozone treatment, get the blood highly oxygenated, then they would go work out. Like they'd leave the clinic, go work out, because they could add a lot of weight and stuff. I know what we're talking about here is people dehydrating intentionally to make a fighting weight at the weigh-in, and then, but in any event. So I went to the gym every day in 1988, 89. I went every day for 2 years. I was a 98-pound weakling, a 119-pound weakling. And then I was just adding weights. I was working on universal machines, just adding, and I really got built up. And strangely enough, I mean, I'm not exactly like a mountain of a man, but I'm decent form. And once you put that muscle on there, it doesn't leave. It's certainly not in the same kind of shape I used to be, but I'm not the spider that I used to be. So there I was doing, really just pushing hard. And I've told this story a couple times. I don't remember how much weight. I genuinely don't remember. But I was doing an incline press for pecs and stuff. And a friend said, "Oh, you need to use free weights. You need to use, pump some iron because it's better for your balance." We'll do it. I'll spot you. Okay. So since I've been working out a lot, I could take a fair amount of weight. So we got the barbells up, and I'm on the incline bench, and I'm ready. Yes, and he's spotting me. Yes, okay, here we go. Hey, give me two more. And I get up here like this, and then all of a sudden, since on the universal machine it's welded together, so it's essentially averaging out both of your arms. I'm doing this, and my left arm says, "No, I don't think so anymore." Boom, gone. All the weights spill off. I push my head back to brace myself against this, and in doing so, I ruptured one disc and herniated another, and that hurt for years and years and years. Finally, I had to have surgery done, and they ground out the disc and replaced it with cadaver bone matrix. So it's not just me, actually. It's funny. It's like I keep thinking this is a solo show. It's actually not. It's me and some other person, which is creepy if you want to think of it as creepy, and cool if you want to think of it as cool. So when they fuse the two vertebrae together, they got to pack it with something, and they pack it with something called cadaver bone matrix, which is exactly what you think it is. It's the ground up bone meal from dead people. And they pack it in there, and your body grows over it and says, "Hey, solid, good to meet you. How you doing?" And there you go. That was another procedure that's just non-event. It was just fantastic. Bill Frankenstein. Beef Fire's got it right. It's recycling. That's that's exactly what it is. I didn't talk about this anywhere else. And it's nice not to have to worry about questions. I know there's a lot of people disappointed because I may just not do any questions today. It's just nice when I just don't have to worry about it. Just kind of get on with it. At least there's no corpse paste. Broke college student. If that is a 40K reference, you win the internet for the day. I'm expecting an answer shortly. Where was it? Oh, So they had the kids together. Oh, broke college student for the win, for the win. Um, yes, it's corpse paste. It's what they grind people into when they go to Terra to make their pilgrimage to see if they can get into the Emperor's palace, the Emperor of mankind, beloved by all. Um, and uh, and Stephen Isaac says, did 40K go woke recently? They kind of went woke light. They went. All right, I'm just having fun tonight, so I'm just going to go with it. Um, Let me just finish this one little story. So we went to Florida for Thanksgiving. All four of the kids there together for the first time in 19 years. We'd all seen each other, but never all together at the same time. Um, so so we had my mom's ashes, and we went out to Key Biscayne where we grew up and released them into the water. And that's what she wanted. She'd said that she'd wanted that from way before she started losing her mind. And it was Thanksgiving Day. It was really nice. The whole family was there, and and Natasha and a bunch of other people. Um, uh, and it's very very beautiful clear water that day. Uh, wow. Okay, Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel tweet. I think Jimmy Kimmel thinks he's funny, uh, and I know that Seth Rogen and Sarah Silverman think they're funny, but I don't think they're funny, and neither does Critical Drinker. Um, so anyway, so the reason we went with this, my brother Evan lost his wife to cancer a couple years ago. Really, love of his life, and he said something uh, that that I never forgot because his wife was cremated and ashes spread in the ocean. And as we're walking out there, her name was Kim. He said, because it's been a couple years now. I said, by now, uh, Kim's been around the world a couple times. Huh? I said, yeah, all the water in the ocean. He said something I never forgot. He said, once you're in the water, you're in all the water. That's really kind of cool. So, been 3 or 4 years, and in that time, the atoms that were in her ashes have traveled around the world, probably twice. Been underneath the polar ice caps, and some of them have been out there in the Pacific, and all the rest of it. I thought that was a beautiful thought, so we did that anyway, and it was really nice. It was just really really good. So back to the 40K thing, which I think is fun. So I had seen 40K from the outside for the longest time, and I just couldn't. I just hated it, and I hated it because looking at it from the outside, the whole. So 40K is Warhammer 40K, 40,000 AD. It's set in the far future, in the grim darkness of the far future. There is only war. Um, and and it started out as a desktop game, and so the original figures were, you had these like heavily armored space marines are about this big, and since they can only get so much detail into a model that big, everything was really blocky. The air vehicles look blocky, and the guns are blocky, and all. I just thought it was dumb. And then I saw a video, I think, from Oculus Imperia, who does some of it, um, videos on this, and it started interesting me. How interested did I get? I got so interested that I read the entire Horus Heresy series, including the Siege of Terra. I just finished the latest book last week. That was 64 novels, 64 science fiction novels in series. Read them all. Some of them are incredibly great. Others were pretty good. Some of them were just place fillers. But the 40K universe appeals to me because it's actually almost like an in joke in a weird sort of way. It is as dark as things can possibly be. It is the darkest imaginable future. And every time you think it can't get darker, somebody comes up with a way to make it even darker. And I like it even more. Um, so, um, So in the future, 40,000 years from now, there's been this great uprising, this civil war called the Horus Heresy. And the Emperor of Mankind, who's this super psychic, who's guarding the universe, because the only way to travel from star to star is to go through the warp, which is this realm inhabited by nothing but pure emotions and all kinds of demonic influences and stuff. Um, and um, and it just gets more and more horrible. They talk about the horrors that were caused by artificial intelligence back in the second millennium. So no more artificial intelligence. So how do you run all these things? Well, you have cogitators, which are humans that do this, and then you when somebody's found guilty of crime, there's a lot of crime to be found guilty of in the 40K universe. You become a servitor. They basically lobotomize you, and they plug you into all these machines, and it's just nothing but these walking corpse zombies. Just it's fabulous. And when so Earth by then, Terra is filled with probably trillions of people, and all of them want to go visit the Emperor's Palace, which is in the Himalayas. It's the all of the Himalayas. It's just the size of a continent. This building, and and when you die there, and everybody dies there because the air is poison, and some people wait in line for 20 years. Uh, when you die, you're just sent to the recycling vats, and you emerge as corpse paste, which is a nutrient paste, which is used to feed the next generation of pilgrims. Corpse paste, awesome. Um, it's just fabulous. So anyway, somebody said, didn't they go woke? So the whole appeal of 40K is that it is as grim dark as it can possibly be. That's the appeal of it. It's horrific. Horrific. And it's supposed to be horrific. And then, I'll get to that in a second, Wizard. And then, the guys who run this 40K universe, who own it in England, Games Workshop, I think GW, said, we can appeal to a much larger audience. In other words, brackets, make a lot more money. But people think that 40K is too dark, so we're going to make it less dark. We're going to do a kids' cartoon show, an animated kids series from the 40K universe. And now the Space Marines are kind of like, they're not these mutant freaks that are inhuman and all the rest of the stuff. It's trillions. Yeah, the Empire consists of millions of stars, and this is all part of the horror of it. The oceans are gone, stolen by a warlord. It's just Earth is nothing but a cinder, and it requires billions of ships feeding it, constantly. It's horrific. All of it's horrific, and so they decided to say, hey, we're going to make this for kids, but they did something different than this. Before they did the kids animated series, people who don't read 40K universe, people who've never been into 40K, people who don't even like science fiction, started to get down on 40K because the Space Marines, which is what the whole thing's about, the Astartes, they take baseline humans and they just pump them full of drugs, and they give them a second heart and do all this genetic modification, give them all these organs and senses and stuff they don't have. So these guys are like 8, 9 feet tall, or huge. And all of the Space Marines were male. You know why? Because they had to be super strong and super fast. Well, this upset some of the people who are professionally upset. And they said, well, we should have women Space Marines. And these idiots at GW agreed with them. And so now you've got your battle brothers. We've had this terminology for 30, 40 years that 40K has been out. Now we have battle sisters. We have these female superhuman warriors. And it's absurd. Just can't do it. Roy's obsessed with this billions of people. Won't the Earth's theoretical carrying limit limited to 200 billion? It might be, but they are in the 40K universe. There are millions and millions of ships landing, thousands touching down at the same time all around there. It's all fed from all these other planets, the Earth. If these supplies stop, then billions of people just start starving the next day. And the the woke activists said, "Hey, wait a minute. Here's something where men are really men. They're superhuman. There are no women involved. There's no sex involved. There's no love involved. These are warriors. They're bred to be warriors. All they do is simply get out there and kill things in the name of the emperor, beloved by all. They're machines, and they're enormous. And it was exclusively male, and nothing can be exclusively male anymore. Everything has to be accessible to people who have no interest in it whatsoever." So then they started coming out with these female space marines, and I just said, didn't happen as far as I'm concerned. I don't care if it's canon or not. I don't care. No. You don't get this. You don't get to have it. No. And this is kind of probably an interesting thing to talk about, because this is what the left is, right? I saw the latest example of trans athlete situation. A Penn State swimmer who was mediocre. He'd get in a college meet, might come in 7th out of 9 or something like that. Okay swimmer, mediocre swimmer. Suddenly felt like he was a woman, declared himself as transsexual, and then set all kinds of swimming records in women's competition. Broke all the records. So, why do they do this? Why is transgender athletes the hill that the left is going to die on? And I mean, that's where they're going to die. Why is it that they have intimidated scientists into saying, no, we can't say that a woman is a biological thing. Just because you don't have a uterus doesn't mean you're not a woman. You're a birthing person. Why all of this stuff, right? Why is this so important? Why is something this small in terms of the grand scheme of society, why are they standing on this hill and going down with it? Why are they destroying female sports? They're supposed to be the champions of women and feminism? Nope. Transgenderism trumps that, you see, pardon the expression. And here's why. The reason that transgenderism is the issue that it is today, and that they're trying to cancel, even big liberals like J.K. Rowling. The reason they fight and die on this hill is very simple, and you need to understand this. That guy broke the women's swimming records because, according to the left, he is a woman. He is by definition a woman. And the reason he is a woman is because he feels like a woman. Okay? And so now you're at the heart of it. Because all of leftism is predicated on this idea of magical thinking. If I want to be something badly enough, then it's true. And so if I can't get there, if I want to be something and I can't get there, then that's oppression, and I should be able to do anything I want to. Classic example of this would be if I had that philosophy and I was 17 years old and I went in for the eye exam for the Air Force Academy, and I found out that I had 20/15 vision in one eye and 20/25 vision in the other eye, no fighter pilot for you, Bill. Then, in the world of woke ideology, instead of me saying, well, that's just the way it goes, man. You have to have standards. If you're going to be a fighter pilot, you got to be able to see things. And if it's not 2020, if they let 2025, then they'll let in 2030 and 2035, so on. I understand. I don't like it, but I understand it. But no. If I was a leftist, what I would have done is I would have sued the Air Force Academy for depriving me of my God-given right to be a fighter pilot and destroying my life and oppressing me and causing me an enormous emotional pain. And therefore, I would have made the Air Force lower their standards, because that would have been the only acceptable outcome, because I want to be something and something is stopping me from doing it. Therefore, it's oppressing me, and therefore it's got to be destroyed. So I would have simply said, no. And by the way, 2025, I could be Mr. Magoo. I could have glasses this thick. But if I want to be a fighter pilot and I'm a leftist, then the Air Force is going to have to adopt its standards to fit me. Right? That's how it will work. And once you understand this, you realize that it's a combination of infantilism and wishful thinking, just like socialism is. So, if you believe it is true, then it's true. And this is how they get to believe in socialism. This is why they fight and die on this hill. If they say something is true, then it's true. It is exactly, look, transgendered athletes in America today are exactly precisely the same thing philosophically as Winston Smith being interrogated in 1984 and being asked, what is 2 plus 2? What is 2 plus 2? Everybody's going to start saying there are 4 lights now from the next generation. I never even saw that episode. But what's 2 plus 2? In 1984, the entire point of what George Orwell, who knew what totalitarianism was because he was a communist growing up, in 1984, when this novel hits this climax, they're torturing this guy and they're saying, what is 2 plus 2? And he says it's 4. And then O'Brien, who's doing the interrogation on the part of the state, on the part of Big Brother for INGSOC, English Socialism, says, no, try again. Here's some pain for you. What's 2 plus 2? It's 4. Here's some more pain. What's 2 plus 2? I don't know what to say. It's 5. You want me to say it's 5? Here's some more pain. Now you're just telling me what I want to hear. What's 2 plus 2? And after he tortures this guy enough, Winston Smith says, I don't know. And then he says, that's the answer we're looking for. No more pain for you today. What's 2 plus 2? I don't know. 2 plus 2 equals what the state tells you 2 plus 2 is. This is the left's entire theory, religion, philosophy, strategy, all of it. Truth is determined by what the state says it is. And now you understand how we've reacted to COVID. And now you understand why we're $28 trillion in debt. And now you understand why there are transgendered athletes and all of it. The truth is not external and not real. It is the product of what the ruling elite nomenclatura says it is. If we say that 2 plus 2 equals 5, then 2 plus 2 equals 5. If we say that this guy who suddenly is growing his hair long and says he's a woman is a woman, then he's a woman. And anybody that disagrees with us is going to go to jail or the camps. Because what the state says is true. And that's why it doesn't matter if they change your opinion. The classic line in 1984, which I always get wrong, I think, is that Oceania, that's a super state that Winston Smith lives in, was always at war with East Asia. Well, if I've got them inverted, forgive me. There are 3 giant countries in 1984, super nations, and one of them has always been at war with the other one. Winston Smith works in the Department of Truth, which is kind of like history, cleaning up history. And all of a sudden the state says, no, we're not at war with East Asia. We're at war with Eurasia. We've always been at war with Eurasia. We've never been at war with East Asia. It changes. And now all of the history has to be rewritten. That's his job, is to go back and rewrite the history, because the state can never be wrong. And this is what you need to understand. This is why people are fighting on the transgender hill. The state can never be wrong. And since we're not talking about a totalitarian state that's enforced by gunfire because they're cowards, it's enforced by social proof and peer pressure. The state is the left woke ideology. That's the state. If woke ideology says that men can be women, then that's what you will have to accept. And if we have to put you in the rat cage until you come around, then that's what we'll do, and then we'll shoot you once you believe. Yes, and Broke College student says this is what the Soviets said. In the Soviet Union, the future is certain. It's the past that's changeable or malleable or unknown. Oh, is that right? Yeah, Dave Big Booty gives another great example from 1984. There's an announcement made that the chocolate ration has been increased from 30 grams to 25 grams. Isn't that brilliant? God, that is an amazing book. Brilliant. He has a conversation with a guy who's really big into the state, just like all the rest of these self-branded COVID mummies. And he's having this conversation with this guy who's working on the new dictionary. And he's proud to say that this new 7th edition dictionary has 60,000 fewer words than the previous edition. And they're working on getting even more of them out. They think eventually they'll be able to get the dictionary down to a few hundred words. And the genius of that is, if there's no such word as patriotism, no such word as rebellion, no such word as integrity, no such word as truth, if the only way to describe wanting to be free is by calling it double plus ungood, then you've not only limited people's actions, you've limited their thought. There's no words to describe what you're thinking about. So you don't say it's very bad, you don't say it's horrific. There's no horrific, there's no abominable, there's no atrocious, there's no appalling, there's no calamitous, there's nothing. It's just good and not even bad. It's good and ungood. And if you really want to emphasize it, you don't say, well, it's if something's good, you don't want to say, well, it's great, it's spectacular, it's magnificent, it's astonishing, it's awe-inspiring. No, if it's really good, you could say it's plus good. And if it's the birth of the universe or something like that, you would go all the way to the end of the language and you would say it is double plus good, or double plus ungood. Worst thing you could ever do, mass murderer, genocide, no. Double plus ungood behavior. And we're seeing it now in real time. In 1984, George Orwell describes the new language is called Newspeak, and it's making English smaller and smaller, making all of the ideas that you can have more and more narrow. But the process behind it is called doublethink, and doublethink is the ability to keep two opposing ideas in your mind at the same time and have them both be true. And so now you understand transgendered athletes. Is this a biological male? Yes. Is it actually a woman? Yes. See how it works? Do these things exclude each other? Well, in a world of objective truth, they certainly do. But no, the state says that this is a woman, so this formerly male swimmer is now a woman. Not a transsexual, not even a person who's been altered. No, it is an actual woman. So you got a woman, and at the same time, does he have he has Y chromosomes? Yes. Well, you just said he has Y chromosomes. Yes, that's the definition of a male. This male has Y chromosomes. No. Thought crime for you, Bill. Because this individual in question may have Y chromosomes, but it's not a he, it's a she. Because we said so. There it is. Because we said so. That actually should be the motto of the left. The motto of conservatives ought to be e pluribus unum, out of many one, or in God we trust, or whatever. And the left is because we said so. Because we said so. The reason that they're not going to succeed, and the reason that I've become so strangely optimistic of late, is because none of this survives contact with reality. It only works when you're talking theory. And what I mean by that is, yes, they have the social pressure now to make large companies, universities, the NFL, all of them, take a knee and say, yes, of course this is a woman. If he says he's a woman, it's a woman. Of course he can use the women's bathroom because he says he is, and because the state says he is, so he is. So okay, great. But this doesn't survive contact with reality. And what I mean by that is, if this trend continues, and it will continue for a while, it's going to get worse before it gets better. Then, and because it has to get worse before it gets better, I want it to get worse as fast as possible because I want to get through it to the other side. So, we're already seeing more and more of these trans athletes, and what this means is, if this continues, and it will, then there will not be any double X chromosome individuals in the Olympics. There will be two categories. There will be the men's sports, and then there will be the women's sports, which will be consisting entirely of XY chromosome women. Right? That's an interesting statement, Helios. A tough woman can beat some men. A tough man will beat all women. Absolutely, that's true. But that doesn't mean that men can't have babies. And when I say have them, it doesn't mean not just adopt them. Can men give birth to children? Yeah, of course they can. Why are you asking such a silly question? Of course a man can give birth to a child. How does that work? What do you mean? This man just gave birth to this child. So this man has a uterus and all the rest of it? Yes. What's the problem? So when it turns out that these idiots realize that and look, I've talked about this so many times, and I know it makes me sound very anti-women. It's not that at all, on the contrary. But basically, if they're saying that any male that says he's a woman and can compete in the women's category, they go from being mediocre to being a record breaker, and that means that this trend will continue, and that means that women's sports will be utterly dominated by trans males. And when that happens, this is the part I'm trying to make the point of. What they do when they do this is they continually show up. They're throwing a spotlight on how much superior males are in terms of athletics. All of the women's records are being broken by trans males. And they think that this is kind of, an enlightened kind of thing. All it does is show people, my God. So you're telling me that like a fourth-rate male athlete is better than the best female athlete in the world? That's what you're saying? Yep, absolutely. There are the numbers. Stopwatch doesn't lie. So, it's kind of fun to watch. It's falling apart. And they're not going to succeed. I've started to pay. I've never. And then Steve Eisen says, and then that meltdown happens. Then what? Then people just stop putting up with it. They just stop putting up with it. We're already starting to see this in school board meetings. We're starting to see it. It's starting to make itself known. And as I have maintained for my entire professional career, politics is downstream of culture, so the changes in the culture have been happening for several years now, and that's all looking good. Did the left kill Star Wars with their wokeism? Yes. Did they turn Luke Skywalker into a solitary loner, whiner, crybaby attempted murderer? Yes. Yes, they did all of those things. But since then, the reaction in the pop culture, which leads political culture by 5-10 years at least, has been so outrageous that now Disney is talking about eliminating that recent trilogy, writing it out of the canon. It happened in a different universe, and they're going right back to what they started out with. The Ghostbusters movie that just came out is by all accounts very, very good because it's honest to the original Ghostbusters. And so the 2016 version of Ghostbusters with the 4 women that wasn't funny, that was the woke wave breaking. They made Ghostbusters into women. It was awful because the Ghostbusters aren't women. And it bombed. And so now the pendulum swings back. And so now to make the fans not run completely away, they're going back to making Ghostbusters what it used to be. And it's all swinging back, yes. Eric says now we have The Mandalorian, Bad Batch, and so on. Now we're back to what we had. And Gina Carrera was fired, and then the rumors that she's hired again. Wizard says your Star Wars interview with Joshua Phillips was the video that got me as a member. Well, I'm glad to hear it. Since what we're seeing in the pop culture now is that everything that the woke has touched has been a catastrophe, and now they're scrambling to get unwoke. The woke had their chance, and they failed because they had no chance to succeed. Not only do they have bad ideas, they have bad ideas because they have no talent. That's why they have bad ideas. The reason you're a socialist is because you can't make money. That's it. The only reason you'd be in favor of socialism and having everybody be equally poor is because you're a failure. Because you cannot or will not do what it takes to succeed. So therefore, since you don't want to succeed, you don't want anybody else to succeed. It's the politics of failure. And these guys who are so brave for no, these are losers and cowards who realize that they're never going to be able to compete in male sports, so they decide, well, if I'm just going to be ninth place in male sports, why don't I just declare myself a female? And they're now coming first. That's just chicken shit. That's just such an incredibly cowardly, low, slinky, kind of nasty thing to do. That's what they are. It's a lack of talent. Why is the original trilogy the last trilogy so bad? Because it's badly written. Why does nobody like Rey Skywalker? Because she's a Mary Sue, because she's badly written, because these people are so untalented and so insecure that they cannot write any kind of setbacks into Rey, because then she won't be a powerful role model for women, you see. So she has to be absolutely perfect in everything. First time she flies the Millennium Falcon, much better pilot than Han Solo's been flying it his whole life. She's never been on a spaceship before, but that shouldn't slow her down because she's a young, powerful woman, you see. If she'd gotten into the Millennium Falcon, tried to make an escape, and crashed it into a mountain, destroyed the Falcon, and barely survived, that would be interesting. But they can't do that. They can't do it because they don't have the talent to write that, and they don't have the intestinal fortitude to have somebody that they like suffer. So there you go. And it's just going to continue. Star Trek, the same thing. What's her name? Mikey Spock, as Doomcock calls her. Michael Burnham, the black woman who is Mr. Spock's adopted sister, who he never spoke of in 50 years. Yeah, she can't just be. See, this is the thing. This is the stolen valor argument, right? They cannot write. There's a talented writer, even a half-talented writer, could look at Star Trek Discovery, make it about a young black woman, and make it interesting and compelling because they would make her into a real character. That would take work. She'd have to have setbacks. She'd have to have problems. You'd have to have her get hurt. And you'd have to have her be wrong. But they don't have the talent to do that. They don't have the talent to write an interesting character. So what they do is they steal all of the interest from Spock and staple it to her. Is she interesting? Oh, yeah. Well, what's interesting about her? Oh, she's Mr. Spock's sister. What does that tell me? Well, Spock is interesting. Yeah, Spock's real interesting. Spock's interesting because I've seen 200 hours of Mr. Spock, right? He's interesting because he earned it. Great writers and great actors made Mr. Spock interesting. So I've got a long history of 30 years of Spock being interesting, but what about this new character of yours? What has she got going for her? Well, she's Spock's sister. Isn't that interesting? No, not really. No, it's not. All it does is pull Spock down. Pull Spock down. Pull Spock down. Stephen says that he doesn't see them going unwoke. They're not. The artists will never go unwoke, and the left will never go unwoke. But the studios are facing, and the studios want to be woke, but the studios are realizing no. So, look, The Mandalorian was an immediate, in real time in terms of production time, virtually instantaneous reaction to the catastrophe of The Last Jedi, right? So they realize, my God, we've destroyed the greatest cash cow of all time. What can we do? Well, Kathleen Kennedy's running the show over there, so she's going to handle all the movies. I know we're boned here. What do we do? Well, maybe we could do like a streaming TV show. Okay, who can we get to make this right? Well, Jon Favreau turned Iron Man from a fourth-level Marvel character into the most beloved of the bunch because Favreau is a great director, and Favreau has paid his dues, and Favreau loves the material. Let's give it to him. Next thing you know, you got The Mandalorian. And now you've got actual Star Wars again until the actor playing Gina Carrera, the actress, says something that they disagree with, so she's fired. Now the fans say, "F you, Mandalorian, we're gone." Oh, no, come back. And Favreau was furious over that because he understood that, hey, we're trying to save this franchise at the 11th hour, and we're actually starting to turn fan reaction around, and now you're going to go and do this again? You're going to kill this? No. So, there you go. When Luke Skywalker appears at the end of the second Mandalorian season, what that is a corporate please forgive us. Please forgive us for our woke transgressions. We really sorry. Here's what you loved in the first place. So the last thing you remember about Luke Skywalker is not this old guy on a mountain island who's a lunatic. No, no, no. Here he is again. Look, see, he's in his black uniform. He's young. He's got the sword. And he's fighting bad guys. So they've already lost in the pop culture, and now they're returning to normal, and politics is following 5, 7, 8 years later. It's nice to be able to read the future by looking at the present. And once it crashes, you are, if you'll pardon the expression, inoculated against it. You're immunized. And that's how we really ought to look at it in terms of the larger culture, our experimental wokeism. Right? This is relatively new thought for me, being a few seconds old. But one way to look at it is this whole woke catastrophe is a disease that society has caught and has done a lot of damage, but we have survived it, and now we're immunized as a culture. So do we have, yes, we've got years of fever and coughing and years of all, we'll have the pustules and all of the things that come with disease. They're all here and they're all coming, they're all going to get worse, but we have survived the disease, and then we will have immunity. And that ought to last us for another 50, 60 years. And that's all you can ever hope for, because rest never sleeps. That'll be somebody else's problem. My problem is trying to get us out of this one, and so is yours. So anyway, Favreau, I had my mouth open to say I don't know what Favreau's politics are. I'm sure he's a left-winger, but the point is he knows what the material is. And by the way, Star Wars is Star Wars because it's not political. Once you start injecting politics into Star Wars, it's not Star Wars anymore. It's not a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. It's yesterday here. And so there you go. Now we're kicking their ass. They have failed utterly. And this, by the way, was their entire, this was it. This was the Ludendorff offensive. This was their Pearl Harbor. This was their everything. They cheated in plain sight of everybody. Credibility is destroyed. Nobody believes the Times anymore. Nobody believes in the CDC anymore. Nobody believes in the FBI anymore. They've destroyed everything that they infiltrated, and it's going to take a generation to regain trust in those. I almost said trust in those organizations, but those organizations will never be trusted again. You'll have to eliminate the FBI and then create something new. You just have to rebrand it. So, anyway. Yeah, that's a great point. Coconut ED5, we've never heard from in the comment section before, but welcome. But he said, best decision Lucas ever made was never to explore why the Empire was evil. It just was. Yes. Yes. What is your first, in Star Wars, what is your first introduction to the Empire? Well, you got a bunch of scared-looking guys in a ship, and they are human beings, and they all have faces, and they're worried. And down at the end of this white hall is the door to the ship that just ate them. And all of a sudden there's an explosion, and it's red light and smoke, and out of the gates of hell come these white skeletons. It's not an accident that they have these white joints with black in between them and have a grill that looks like a skeleton. They're skeletons. Obviously skeletons. So all these white skeletons come out. And you think, oh my God, we're being attacked by skeletons. Bang, bang. Maybe we can hold off the skeletons. And then you realize, it's not the skeletons. They're just the doormen. Because the next thing you see is a 7-foot tall black creature with a skull for a face, same kind of mouth thing. He's wearing a Nazi helmet. It's big enough to float a boat in. And he's breathing through a respirator, which means that he is a mechanical, biological creature. And as I like to say, when Darth Vader first makes that entrance in the original Star Wars, I leaned over to the person sitting next to me and I said, I'll bet you that's the bad guy. Yeah, and then Roy points out the first thing you do. What's the first thing you find out about the Empire? Well, you came from this planet and you're not doing what the state tells you. Destroy the planet. What? Yeah, just destroy it. There's billions of innocent people there. There are no innocent people. We've decided that they're guilty. So, yeah, Wizards got it right. They blow up the planet for spite. It's actually not just for spite. You could think it's for spite, but it's not. They blow up the planet not because, oh, we'll show you planet. They blow up the planet because you have dared to disagree with what we're saying, and so therefore we'll make an example of you. We're not just going to take the people or the political leaders. We're not going to do no, because this isn't about Alderaan anymore. It's about the rest of the empire. The rest of the empire hears that there's a little bit of political trouble on Alderaan. Really? What's the latest news from Alderaan? There is no Alderaan. What? It's gone. The whole thing? Yep. What does that tell you? It tells you don't F with the empire is what it tells you. So it's all just laziness. That's a tragedy, you know. It puts somebody like me fighting against a character like Michael Burnham or Rey, and it makes me sound like a misogynist, but I'm not. I'm attacking these female characters because they're written by feminists and they are not characters. They're cardboard cutouts of what they want to be. Rey is what Kathleen Kennedy sees herself as. A warrior with a lightsaber. Does Kathleen Kennedy know how to hold a lightsaber? No. Has Kathleen Kennedy ever done anything to deserve the title of warrior? No. Have social justice warriors ever been in an actual fight? No. But they sure do wear that title, don't they? They're anti-war, but they call themselves warriors. You know why? Because warriors are cool. Sounds cool. Wizard says, go to Gaming Realm and search for Metroid 5 story. That's what a true female protagonist is like. Okay. But I don't have to do that. I know what great female protagonists look like. They look like Ellen Ripley. They look like Sarah Connor, who both of whom are written by men. Oh, thank you. A number of people have been asking about the table read. The table read is done and recorded. I have not released yet. I am struggling with. We've got a bit of a Dana Scully, great, and we can give 100 other examples. Some of them are written by, some episodes are written by women, but almost exclusively. Oh, my God, Shelby AC for the win. Emma Peel, remember Mrs. Peel from the Avengers? Diana Rigg. She was. I can't think of anybody who preceded her. She was an action hero. She was a karate expert, kicking the guns out of guys, and she was fantastic. It was a strange show, The Avengers, really strange show. But yeah, and she was in the one piece, that one piece kind of bodysuit. My God, man, she was fantastic. Pam Grier, people are saying, yeah, but she came after. Emma Peel was the first one I can think of. And even as a boy, I never had any problem with Emma Peel. Because I never saw Emma Peel walk up to a 250-pound guy and punch him and knock him out. She might use some crazy karate moves if they're not paying attention. Hit him on the, with one of these deadly things. Whoo, karate chop to the neck, down you go. That's funny that most people, young people, will never realize that. But for, I think it must have been a result of World War II. We're fighting those nefarious Japanese bastards, and they have mysterious Oriental skills. Notice I didn't say Asian skills. They have mysterious Oriental skills, and one of the skills is they know how to use karate, which we don't know how to use. And when you use karate, you see, you don't punch somebody with a fist because that's what Westerners do. Orientals, those devious little yellow bastards, they use karate, you see, and they hit you with a hand like this. And if they hit you on the neck, just right with what's called a karate chop, like that, down you go. It's practically the Vulcan nerve pinch. Yeah, Lindsay Wagner and the Bionic Woman. Yes, they're all interesting characters. They're great. They're great. Great. Anyway, the table read is recorded, and it's synced up, and the problem is right now a minor one, but it's enough to make me want to fix it. The animation was rendered in 24 frames a second. Most televisions at 30 frames a second. Most video games, if a video game is running slower than 60 frames a second, then real gamers get upset, and somebody once described 30 frames a second in a video game as sandpaper on the eyes. But movies are at 24 frames a second. And there's a great guy on YouTube named William. He's a VFX artist who works with Unreal. And he's a real world cameraman. And he says, if you want it to look like a movie, render it at 24 frames a second. So we're not talking about video games now. In video games, you turn your head like this, you swish, you'll notice 24 frames a second. Movies don't pan that fast. So 24 frames a second. And that's what I sent our composer. I sent him animation at 24 frames a second. It was rendered in Unreal at 24 frames a second, brought it into Premiere, and I outputted it at 24 frames a second, but what I did not realize was that the sequence in Premiere defaults to 29.97 frames a second, which is NTSC drop frame. And so the music and the sound effects were essentially synced to a 30 frames per second, and the animation is rendered at 24. And so we've had to retime all of the music and the sound effects, which I got finished yesterday. Marusha says, Bill, did you see that Unity acquired Weta, making them competitive with Unreal for hyperrealism again? We'll see. I've heard that Unreal was bought by the Chinese. They've been making major purchases. I personally, I just learned Unreal in the last couple of years. I had a head start because I'd worked in 3D Studio, so I knew about keyframing. I knew, how to light things, and I had the basics. I personally generally like the look of Unreal better, but Unity had Neil Blomkamp had a studio called Oats Studios, and he did 4 or 5 shorts. Look him up on YouTube, Oats Studios. It's got a logo of like a hand, like a digital hand. They did a number of shorts using Unity. Some of them were just exclusively Unity. Some of them were Unity with live action. They got Sigourney Weaver for one of them, and they're fantastic. They're just great. In any event, whether it's Unity or Unreal, combination of both, whatever, we are now really rapidly approaching the point that I realized that got me into the game engine stuff in the first place. For the longest time, I just thought, it looks like video games. I'm not interested. I'm a filmmaker, believe it or not. And then I saw about 2 years ago, something like that. Then I saw Unreal starting to get close enough to reality for me to say, you know what? And it may not even have been Unreal. I think it was when I first saw Love, Death, and Robots when I said, this is getting real close. And I realized in the time it takes me to learn this and start doing some output, it's going to take 2 to 3 years. And then the great thing about this is every single day it gets better and better and better, and it will not stop. It will continue to get better. Humans are the hardest thing to do because we have interaction with humans. Risha points out that on Discord, link will be in the comment section below. A link will be in the description below. That she's posted all of old Zoe's videos from the PJTV days. He was a rocket ship. He still is. He's a great guy. I love working with him. So humans have always been the weak point. Prior to MetaHumans coming out, I used digital scanned heads, but they weren't animated. But they looked pretty good. MetaHumans is groundbreaking, and if Unity can leapfrog them to the next generation, great. They should have somebody nipping at their heels for this. Wizard says it's not stopped, not a month, not a year, not a century. It'll improve and become more realistic until the uncanny valley is gone. I think the uncanny valley is certainly we've crossed it. We're not out of it, but we're certainly almost out of it. I have seen a number of videos where, and I've got a good eye for this, a real good eye for this. Um, I have seen videos where I could not tell that the human was not a real human, and they have to show me a pass with the mesh for me to believe it. Um, and it just gets better every day. So there will come a point within the next year or two when it just pointless. Um, to go out and do all that. All these movies that I wanted to do, I mean, look, I can't do them alone. It's a mountain of work. Took me 4 or 5 months to do the first chapter of this thing, and I got 5 more chapters to go. I can't move at that speed, but I'm getting faster and I need some help. But when I saw Love, Death, and Robots the first season, and I saw an episode called Lucky 13 about this science fiction dropship with a black female pilot who was a great character, who was a thoroughly believable, absolutely wonderful character for a 13-minute short, I thought was great. Um, that looked good enough, and then in the second season they did one called Snow in the Desert, which looked even better. And I also had to come to the realization that computer graphics don't bother young people the way they bother me, because I compare them to movies, and the CG humans don't look as good as humans, but most people who are coming up in the world as audience members grew up with video games. Doesn't bother them much at all. Yeah, the Russians versus the Monsters was great. That was can't recommend that highly enough. Love, Death, and Robots on, is it Netflix? Yeah, I think it's Netflix. Um, so, so when I decided to get on board, I said, we're 3 or 4 years away, maybe 5, from genuine photorealism, and that's how much time it's going to take for me to get there. How much do I need to raise to hire an animator? I need, depends. Um, it's tough because LA is extremely expensive, and plus you have to find somebody who's conservative on top of it. I can do it online. You're probably going to have uh, some problems with translation. It's nice to be able to literally look over somebody's shoulder, but I've definitely I've got to really break this whole thing down and get some help on board. The problem is that um, I was always hoping that I could touch it each shot last, but I realized no, I have to touch the shot first. And now I need to see about, and this is the last thing I'll say because it's already after 11. I mean after 8. So occasionally people who know me have said, "Hey, Bill, your problem is you're a control freak. You want to do everything." No, no, that's not it at all. Reminds me of that line in broadcast news where somebody says to Holly Hunter's character, they said, "I suppose it must be really great being the smartest person in the room all the time, huh?" And she says, "No, it's horrible." So I have no interest whatsoever in the mechanics of doing the animation. I do all of it myself, and I'm slow at it. And when the new suit comes in, I got a Neuron suit and wasn't real happy with. I get the Rococo suit should be in mid January, which is getting closer. Um, well, thank you, Eric. That's nice of you. So when this second suit arrives, which is much easier to use and gets better, much better fidelity, but the problem with the Neuron suit is not just that the limited numbers of recordings I did with it were a little bit noisy. The problem is the suit and it is just a bitch to put on. It originally started out as just straps. There wasn't a suit. Then I got the suit, but you still have to do the straps. Just getting into it is 45 minutes. The Rococo suit, on the other hand, everything's wired inside. It's all zipped up. You just get into it, plug the gloves in, baboom, you're done. You're ready to go. So when I get that, then that'll save virtually all of the time I spend. Right now, if I have a scene, and I'll give you a great example. I've got a scene where the guys come out of the vortex on the other side, and they're going into this castle, and they have to take a step down and then walk among skeletons and then take 2 steps up. Now, for me to do that right now, I have to find animation of walking. I have to find animation of stairs, which doesn't exist. Strange coincidence. Steve Eisland said, "Did I ever use Mixamo?" Mixamo has hundreds of animations, including walking downstairs. But here's the problem: if I want to do a shot of the guy walking down a step or two, across the thing of skeletons, up another step, and so on, I have to find a walking animation. I have to find a step animation. I have to blend them seamlessly so there's no jump. Take one step, then I have to blend that into another walking animation so that there's no jump, no leg movement, no body movement. All these root motion things have to be calculated. Then he has to walk across the skeletons, and I didn't want a regular walk. I wanted a walk that looked like, my God, I'm kind of walking through skeletons, which doesn't exist. And then I have to find climbing upstairs animation. I have to sync that up perfectly so that doesn't jump or do all the rest of the stuff. And then it's just crazy. When I get the suit, I will really, really pick up the pace. And they said middle of January. It's not a sitting in Long Beach problem. It's a chip problem. They just can't get the chips fast enough. Manufactured in Europe. I want to say in it's not the Netherlands, is it? Might be. Anyway, it's a great suit, and I decided to. So I bought a suit, and then I bought a second suit for twice the price, because in the Rococo ad, they've got the guy sitting there with the suit, and he's just doing this with his fingers, like just doing this. So fingers are the ones that are hardest to track. And it's coming out of Unreal in real time, including the facial capture. Great. I'll get to that in a sec. Have I ever used IK animation methods? I have, but I'm not an animator. Every time I try to animate anything, it looks like garbage. So once I get the suit, then I no longer have to look. Forget putting it together. Just finding them. There are probably 10,000 individual animations, stock animations out there, and everything I've done has been using them, and I'm grateful for them. But in order to make a scene happen, I have to go and find the 5 or 6 animations that I need, and then I have to blend them together. All of this stuff. Little things, right? Little things. Like, for example, every single walk you see in the original, if you saw the original chapter, which will be getting there, every single walking animation, every single one of them is just a guy just walking, or he stands, or he turns, or he does all these other things, and he's got his hands relaxed at his side. But I've got guys who are holding a torch in one hand and a sword in another. So for every single one of those animations, I have to go to every single joint on every single one of the 4 fingers, including the thumb. So 3 joints each, that's 15 individual settings. I have to go to this hand, which is normally like this. I want to grasp a sword. Great. I'll start with the index finger. Right? So I have to take this index finger, and I have to take this thing, and I have to bend it 40 degrees. And I have to take the second joint, I have to bend that about 40 degrees. And the finger I have to bend about 50 degrees. And once I set that, it'll stay for the animation. But so far, so good. Then I have to go to the middle finger. Take the first joint, bend it 40, second joint 40, third joint 40, 50, that kind of thing. And this takes time. And I have to do it all the time. When I get the suit, I just hold. It's here somewhere, by God. Here it is. See? Here's my torch. Or, alternatively, my sword. I actually had a Aragon sword, but it was just crazy heavy. But that's good, because if this thing is heavy, then it... So here's my torch, see? And now all of my body is reacting to the weight of this torch. Because this thing's heavy, I'm counterbalancing. If I had a sword in the other hand, now I've got to think about how I walk. By the way, don't tell anybody you saw this. I have to keep a actual baseball and a mitt here, and I'm not making this up. It is illegal for me to have this in California, in my office, and it's illegal for me to carry it in the car. That is an absolute true thing. You cannot have a big stick in your car. Anything can be used as a weapon, and I'm not allowed to do that. So I have to keep a baseball glove here and a baseball. Yeah, I know how IK works. It still has to be done. You got to go in and do it, and it may be a little faster using inverse kinematics, but it still has to be done. When I get the suit and everything's good, I simply say to myself, and this is the great part, by the way, all of the stuff in the first chapter, I not only did my own acting, I did Zoe's acting as well. It's his voice, but I did the acting behind the mask. Because mostly just eye motion. Anyway, you get the idea. Yeah, that's it. All right. So that'll make things go a lot faster. You just have to wait till middle of January, and then we should see big increase. Meanwhile, I'm working on them one at a time. It's I just got a real tough physical area I have to cross, and it's just a bear. So anyway, yeah, Zoe's voice is not only a great addition, he's great, and since I've done the animation using stock animation for both Zoe's character and my character, I always have to kind of degrade my character. So whenever there's like a run or a sprint, there's a sprint in the final shot. These guys are sprinting. I got Zoe going at they're all the animations are too fast. They're all timed for games. So when I get the running animation for Zoe's character, I put it in at probably about 92% of speed, and for me, I probably knock it down to 80%. So Zoe runs faster than I do. I don't think there's much question about that. And when I have to physically, manually, I've got an animation with a jump. Okay? I have to go in there and I want him to jump higher, so I have to take that one keyframe and I have to move him up a little bit and bring him back down. So I have to make Zoe jump higher than I do and all the rest of it. Yeah, Wazard, I like that too. The two astronauts on the being stuck on the asteroid. That's where I want to go. But I made a decision to do this fantasy thing because it's a sharper political point and I need to get new members. So we will see. And in order to get new members, I have to get these other tapes done. In order to get that done, I had to get the music and sound resynced to 24 frames a second. Got that yesterday. So anyway, that's that. So look at that. It's 8:20, 2 hours and 20 minutes of nonstop nonsense. That's what you're here for. I was going to edit the Moving Back to America, but it's going to be 3 hours of editing. I'm going to start on it. I may end up having to bump that to next week. This one's very heavy. Hey, Steve. This one's very heavy video elements. So anyway, I'll get started on it. I don't know if I'm going to get it done in time to do 2 shows this week. I want to do 2 Moving Back to America's a week, but it's been one for a couple weeks now. So I did get one out earlier this week, The Walking Dead. Number of people saying tell Natasha to say hi. She's certainly more popular on the show than I am, and I don't blame you one little bit. So anyway, yeah, I don't get to that, Marisha. I'm sorry, it's been a little overwhelmed. I'm hoping that the top up will help. Like I said, I was a couple quarts low there, so hopefully that'll help. In any event, the engine light went off, so that's a good sign. And we'll see. I may end up putting the facial motion capture into business sooner rather than later because of the impact crater that's expecting. So, yeah, consider the free state of America. Consider the free state of Florida. Yeah. My wife wants to go to Florida real bad. Me, not so much. All right. Thank you, Steve. I've had a couple people say, I don't know how you get all. A friend of mine said, I don't know how you produce all the work you do. I've never had a day, not one day ever, and I mean this, and I'm not proud of this, and it's not false anything. It's just the truth. From the day I started BillWhittle.com, I have never once gone home feeling like I did enough for the day. Never, ever, ever. All I do is think about all the stuff that I either missed or should have done or I late on or whatever. I sometimes have to stop myself and say, 8 shows a week, 9 is not so bad for, essentially a one guy operation. Tunguska. Oh, political. I got to tell you, man. I think I'm gonna have to eliminate the competition right away, and just go with that. It's great, Tunguska. For those of you turning in late, this little biopsy they did turned out we've got some freeloaders that are on the train riding for free. So I'm going to have a Mohs procedure, and there's going to be a crater about the size of a nickel on my lip here for a couple of months, I guess, until it heals up. I heal fast. I'm wounded frequently. Many times you don't even realize this. Oh, Tunguska, clever. Yeah, I'm often come to do this Stratosphere Lounge severely injured, run through with swords. Somebody get a lucky hit on me while I put him down, that kind of thing. So anyway, I do, looking back on the show, which is now 2.5 hours long, I realize that I have been really kind of on a roll. So whether or not it's the ozone oxygenated 60 cc's of blood in action or the vitamins or whatever, but I do realize I'm feeling definitely a little chippier, and my voice is a little more relaxed. So that may have to do with having enough fluid in the bloodstream. We'll see. Anyway, if you were waiting for your question, I didn't get to it. I know, I'm sorry about that, but sometimes it's nice just to be able to rant. And there you have it. Episode 300 and something of the Stratosphere Lounge, made possible by the members of BillWhittle.com from episode 1. I haven't the faintest idea why you guys are still here. Really, it's a mystery to me, and I know you kind of come here every week to listen to this, but I'm much more fascinated by the fact that people just keep coming back. It's a mystery to me, but you never know. We got a great group of people watching this show. Not just good people, but smart people. Every time I ask any kind of question in the comment section, 7-8 second lag, and bam, back. Wow, 300. We're well past 300. I think we're 305, 306 now, I think. Yeah, and Doomcock, as you probably know if you're a fan of Doomcock, has had some real tough personal issues, which he's mentioned around the outside edges. And I'm going to give him a call. And by the way, I'm going to send Doomcock my Star Trek episode. Many may not have seen that, called the Dowd Conundrum. It was the first video I did after the atomic bombs video, and I did the whole thing on the bridge of the Enterprise, and I was real happy with that. So, yeah. Anyway, if you're watching this and you're not a member, you probably heard the pitch by now, but genuinely rather, we really do have a bunch of good people, and a lot of people just saying all the time that, found a lot of friends here they didn't know they're missing until they got here. So if you're feeling a little alone out there, this would be the place for you. The Stratosphere Lounge is always the place for you. It's always free of charge, no admission, no cover, no drinks, no minimum. And thank you, Steve. And that'll do it. My Marusha is my sorcerer. I almost said my sorcerer's. I almost said dog body, but I really meant to say familiar. Just magically waves a wand and things appear. She found planetarium shows, and she just put a link in the live comment section to that. And I don't know if Scott can get it on the post, but we'll see. Sorcerer's Apprentice, sure, why not? Let's go with that. Yeah, all right. Hey, done. That'll do it for this edition of the Stratosphere Lounge. Again, made possible by the members at BillWhittle.com. I and my wife and the rest of us here in this little shop are grateful every day. And I know I say that every week, but I mean it every week. Every single week. Everything we do, even when we went to the IV thing today. Our members are making this possible, so we'll see. Anyway, great to be here. And do I still trash talk about you after the show? No, Natasha talked me out of doing that. I loved it. I thought it was fun. The hot mic kind of thing. But we'll see. Hail Vectron, as Eric Blake says. And I guess we will see you right here next week, if you have the stomach for it.